Happy Wednesday, my most favorite day of the week. I am so excited to see you here today, and I hope you have something lovely in your cup. Hopefully, it's warm. I know I have some hibiscus tea, but who knows what you have? It could be wine. I won't judge you anyways, but I'm sending a big cheers from Austin, Texas, from me to you. If you are new here, welcome. We would love to know who you are. If you could drop in the chat where you're coming in from and perhaps what is in your cup, we would so appreciate it. A big hi to Rachel and Jeff and Kim and Chuck and Blair and Mitch. I can't wait to hear about the sabbatical that you are on. It is going to be an amazing coffee session. If you're new here, every single week we get together to talk to interesting founders, leaders, executives, CEOs, celebrities, all the people who are doing really cool things, and we pretty much steal all their secrets. We figure out what's working from them and we copy their homework so that we can apply it to our everyday lives. Today is no different, and I am really excited for today's guest, DJ, because I met DJ probably a couple months ago now. And when he started to tell me about his work and things that he was working on and sort of what he believes in, I was totally intrigued. I was like, I didn't even think that this was real life, but apparently it is, because DJ is all about sabbaticals. And you might find yourself being like, what is a sabbatical? I don't even know what that is. That's why DJ is here today. Hopefully you did some Google stalking on him before you came in today. If not, no worries. Take a look in the chat where we will drop his LinkedIn profile link. That way you can click on it and kind of do your own detective work on DJ before he gets here. We always drop in links for people because I get it. You get busy. Things are happening. If you are so ready for this conversation like I am, but you want to enjoy your tea or your coffee or your wine, maybe you have a little snack at your desk, I don't know, and you don't feel like taking notes, no problem. Go to sendmenotes.com. That's sendmenotes.com. And voila, the notes will come to you on Tuesday. I know it takes us a couple days to get them all together, but you got to write the notes. You got to get all the links. You got to get it together. So we will write notes for you. No problem. You don't have to worry about getting out your pen and paper as DJ's talking and scrambling furiously, because I don't like doing that either. So I hope you will help me in welcoming DJ.
Hey, how are you?
How's it going?
Good.
I am so excited for today. I think it's going to be a really fun learning lesson for all of us.
Totally. I like how you're rebranding Wednesdays as the best day of the week.
Wednesday is the best day of the week. It's hump day, That's what I'm going with anyways. Okay, so DJ, for anybody who didn't have time to Google stalk you before we jumped on today, give us a 101 overview of kind of who you are and how you got here.
So about 10 years ago, I started a company that was basically creating a FICO score for emerging markets. So how do you give access to credit to people where there's no financial kind of bureaus, credit bureaus, financial information? It was my dream job. And, I was living in Africa and Asia, traveled around to maybe 50 countries. And about 6 years in, just kind of felt burnt out. And I feel like no one tells you burn out from your dream job. I've heard that you burn out from, working in banking or consulting or something you don't like. And so it left me in this place where I was like, man, I don't know if this isn't the job for me. I don't know what I would do. So talked to my co-founder and decided to take a few months off. And that kind of period of time just changed my life. On it, and we can talk a little bit more about it, I spent 6 weeks on a walking pilgrimage in Japan, helped my dad remodel a house, just a bunch of stuff, wrote my first song. And so I came back thinking, why do I not know more about this phenomenon? I feel like, you hear folks that have taken some time off, they've written a blog post about it or something, but there's no research out there about it. But everyone I talked to had the same experience, a kind of life-changing experience. So I set out to kind of create some research, create some actual evidence that there's something really important here, and spread the word and spread other people's stories about how you can kind of incorporate this in your career and in your life.
Okay, here's where I'm going to make a little confession. And maybe it's because I worked for 12 years straight out of college in New York City, which is like crazy people of the world in terms of work and lack of life and the work-life balance. But you are the first human that I have ever met that took a sabbatical. I've known women that do maternity leave, and I've known men that do paternity leave. But I have actually never met someone before I met you that has taken a sabbatical. And I don't know if I'm the only one here. So actually, if you are here with us live, drop in the chat yes if you have known other humans that have done sabbaticals, and drop in no if you have not. I hope there are some no's. Because maybe I'm the only one that's just never met somebody that's been on a sabbatical, but are these common? I mean, I literally had never, I knew what a sabbatical was, but I had never, it's kind of like knowing that there's leprechauns, but I haven't seen one. There could be some out there. It's like, I've heard of a sabbatical, but like, I've never known a human that's taken one. So is it something that in your life you had seen other people take sabbaticals? So like you kind of knew what was going on?
Yeah. So, I mean, lots of things to hit on there. First, as a Notre Dame alum, I can tell you there are leprechauns. Those are real.
There are.
Yeah, of course. And second, I would bet you that after this conversation, you're going to hear from a lot of folks in your network and a lot of folks that have actually taken one. I kind of think that it's one of those things where people really don't publicize it that much because historically it has made them feel a little uncomfortable, right? Like, I'm stepping away from the workforce. I don't really want to advertise that. What if people hold it against me? What if people resent the fact that I took time off and they can't? And so I think right now, and we can talk about the impact of the pandemic on this phenomenon, people are starting to say, like, you know what? Yeah, I'm taking time off for me, and that's enough. I don't have to justify it for you. And frankly, like, one of my goals with the Sabbatical project is to eradicate the world of the word sabbatical, because it's this word that people like us, non-academics, use to make, wanting to be more human and take time off and do something other than work sound professional and like an accomplishment. Some of the most confident people I know will just say, like, no, I didn't call it a sabbatical. I just took a few months off to spend time with my kids. And so, that's like the ultimate goal here.
And do you find that it's like, when you started to talk about it, I know you want to outlaw the word sabbatical, but when you started using the word sabbatical and talking about it, did you find that most people are like, yep, DJ, I know exactly what you're talking about, no problem? Or do you find that most people are like, sabbatical, like, what's that? Like, tell me more. Like, what is the landscape that you usually find yourself in?
So, I mean, I'm in a pretty biased space. Obviously, I'm surrounded by sabbatical people now, and I'm a bit of a sabbatical Pied Piper. So I would venture to guess, if I haven't gotten Shelby to think about taking a sabbatical yet, my goal is to get you to take one in the next 5 years.
Shelby, yeah, I mean, taking a sabbatical. Just
see, it's managers like you that prevent people from taking time off.
That's correct. That is correct.
No,
I went without her for 3 months while she had a baby. So I can survive. It's possible. Is it pretty? Debatable, but I can do it.
So that's kind of my goal. Obviously, I come from a place where I'm an entrepreneur. I ran a business. We had almost 100 employees. Like, it's not convenient when someone leaves to go to do parental leave. It's not convenient when someone takes FMLA leave or quits, right? But as a business, especially a small business, we have to be able to like work that muscle to have key players leave and come back, or leave and not come back. And so I kind of view from like a business owner standpoint, I view being able to like let people go and, give other people in the organization responsibilities as like a competitive advantage.
Do you think, though? Okay, I'm going to push back on this ever so slightly. Because I've had other people come on the podcast who talk about work-life balance. First of all, I hate that term. I think it's terrible, but whatever. This semblance of like you're living a life where you can have your life and your kids and your family or whatever, or no kids and no family and wine and fun, and work. And if you can find a way where you feel happy to wake up every day, you're kind of happy with the free time that you have and whatever, would you need a sabbatical? Like if we lived in a utopia where that was balanced, whatever that means, or are sabbaticals a symptom of this like hustle culture or like this crazy hamster wheel culture that we've made for ourselves?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I would say there's just things out there that you cannot do with like work-life balance or with, 2 weeks of vacations per year. So for example, I did this crazy pilgrimage in Japan, but the reason I did it was because I walked a bit of the Camino de Santiago in Spain. You've heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I probably saw that movie with Martin Sheen and Charlie Sheen. Was it Charlie Sheen? No, Emilio Estevez and Martin Sheen, The Way. And I was like, that looks cool. And, I wanted to go do it. And because I was working like a crazy person, I was like, okay, I can squeeze the last 100 kilometers in the 4 days before I go to a wedding in Portugal, blah, blah, blah. And I went and I did it with my friend, and we both injured ourselves because we were walking twice as much as we should have walked. And we weren't prepared and we didn't train. And, we got ourselves in this situation where you're like, what, why are we so busy that we can't take time, significant time to do things that are important to us? And for something like that, I mean, that's doing work on your spiritual side. Like, I don't think 10 minutes a day meditating or whatnot is going to do it. There's just things out there in the world that are amazing and beautiful that take more time. Americans are singularly like leading the world at being bad at this. But a lot of folks are right up there with us.
So how do we even think about like someone who's joining today and they're like, okay, I thought DJ sounded interesting. Like this whole sabbatical thing sounds curious. I'm sabbatical curious. How do you even go about thinking, is a sabbatical right for me? And two, when you're thinking about, is a sabbatical right for me? How do you even think about it? Is it, what would it be if I took a month off? Is it, what would it be if I took 3 months off? Like, how can people even begin to have this conversation with themselves?
So back to the thing you said earlier about not knowing someone that has taken a sabbatical. We spent the last 2 years doing research on sabbatical takers. So people, I mean, the term comes from academia, right? Like professor would take a sabbatical. The term really comes from the Bible and the Old Testament of like rest, but academia is kind of what popularized it. So what we found in studying people that weren't academics is that they needed what we call an exemplar. They needed someone who they know or someone who looks like them or they look up to that has done this in their career and survived and thrived in order to feel comfortable doing it. So, I mean, the first thing I would do is, and I would encourage you to do this as well, is, like ask folks, like the first thing is just finding those folks who have done it. I mean, I found that it's kind of like this secret of really successful folks, like anyone from Mark Benioff of Salesforce. I mean, Steve Jobs took time off and studied calligraphy. Malia Obama. I mean, all these folks, I think it's surfacing if you look for it. But really the key that's going to get you out the door to take time off is thinking about what you would like to do that you haven't been able to make time for in your life. And there's no foreseeable like version of your life where you're going to be able to make time to do it. Right. So is that, doing dance classes in Argentina for a month? Is that learning a foreign language? Is that practicing cooking in Thailand? Is that a yoga teacher certification? And I kind of think that once you let that seed of an idea sit inside of you, like it will grow and you will start seeing sabbaticals everywhere you turn. You will start reading about folks that actually made time for the thing that they were really passionate about. And it turns out they thrive and survive in their career as well. And that's kind of the first step.
And so when you let's say you put out on LinkedIn, social media, hey friends, has anyone taken a sabbatical? And you start to get those answers back, like your cousin or your friend's brother or something starts right back, I took a sabbatical, I took a sabbatical. Do you recommend that people just hop on the phone with these people and kind of ask what they did and how it worked? Or once you start getting that feedback that someone in your community, someone in your network has taken it, where do you go from there?
Yeah, talk to folks on the phone. I mean, this is I can be like the best and the worst person to have, at like a dinner party table, because half the people will, like, when I sit next to someone, I'm like, is this person going to think I'm a joke because I'm writing a book about sabbaticals while I'm on sabbatical? Or are they going to be a person that says, oh my gosh, I took a month off before I started my job and it like changed my relationship with my kid, or it like, that's how I got the idea for my startup and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I mean, have that conversation. People who've done it will talk your ear off, and it will kind of inspire you and I think ignite that. I mean, I don't want to take over your show here, but I do want to like turn this back on you, because you're a really successful, driven, hardworking person. And like, you will not be able to take a sabbatical tomorrow. You won't be able to take it next year. But if there's something that you want to do that's important to you, like, make a 5-year plan. Like, what are you doing in, January of 2022?
It's such a good point. I think as long as right, women, not to like toot our own horns, but we've been having kids and working, really hard in the workplace for the last 50 years plus. So I think obviously you have 9 months to prepare for that ultimate step out of the workforce. So I totally hear you. I think with enough planning ahead, you definitely can take a significant amount of time off as long as you plan ahead for it and plan ahead for it. And this is another thing I want to touch on, plan ahead for it financially, right? So some people because the financial, it's part of it. Like, you can't escape it. So some people, maybe it is a longer plan because financially they're paying off college loans. Maybe financially they're paying off their house. Maybe financially they're taking care of an older parent. How do you think about, there's the spiritual side and sort of the goals and maybe things that you want to do, like write a book or spend more time with your kids. But then there's also sort of the financial side, like what can you actually afford if you stop work? So how do you talk about that with people that you're working with or as part of the book? And because it does feel like those two things would be intertwined somewhat.
Totally. So David in the comments talks about how he works at Salesforce. Like, companies, like a lot of companies, 1 in 7 companies in the States have some sort of sabbatical policy. The majority of them are unpaid, and the super majority of them are insufficiently long. But I think that like that's a start, right? Like, it's a gateway drug. If you can take 2 weeks off, you can take 4 weeks off, you can take 6 weeks off. Our research shows that depending on kind of what state you're entering into the sabbatical, what mental state, are you burnt out? Did you have a traumatic event, toxic event from work, separation from a partner, death in the family? That'll take you a lot longer to be able to like shed those layers to actually, get into doing the hard work of having fun and getting to know yourself a little bit more. So all that to say that I would encourage people to like actually ask people at their companies. I know that I've talked to a lot of teachers who, after speaking with them, they look at their union contracts and find like, oh, every 14 years, I can take a year off and I maintain benefits. I don't get paid, but I can, if you save 7% of your earnings over 14 years, like, that's 100%, right? Roughly.
Right.
And so, and you like maintain your seniority and all that stuff. And so like, ask at your work, see if there's a policy you don't know about. Ask people at your work, because a lot of people have just found ways to integrate it into their career, whether it's between jobs or, a lot of companies that don't have a policy will give special dispensation to high performers because they want to retain them. It's so much cheaper to retain and re-energize someone than to go out, hire someone, train them, manage them up, that sort of thing. So like, the goal of what we're doing is to create research and evidence so that more companies offer policies, so that this financial question is not a non-starter for most folks.
And, to Jeff's point, if you did want to talk to your employer about a sabbatical and you did maybe want to talk to them about getting a paid sabbatical, what are some tactics or tips, or maybe it's like a little bit of negotiation too, that you've seen work well, or at least been a starting point for people?
Yeah, I think, listen, there is concern about being seen as someone that doesn't take work seriously if you take time off work. Women obviously experience this acutely. There's studies about men kind of in Scandinavia that even though they had parental leave, paternity leave, they wouldn't take it because their boss didn't take it. It's not like this is not a problem. So I would encourage folks to ask like trusted coworkers before talking to their managers or superiors, just to see, hey, have you heard of anyone at this company taking it? Like, have you done it in the past? What approach did you take? Because it's going to depend on the company policy. It's going to depend on your manager, that sort of thing. But I have found, through the research and through the interviews that I've done, that when folks are honest with their supervisors and with people at the company, it unfolds this like nesting doll of like, oh yeah, so-and-so took it, or yeah, between the next project, or I want you to stay at the company. And so let's make this work, but can you wait for a year, And so it becomes a bit of a negotiation. And I think that, our world of work and expectations has obviously broken open with the pandemic. And so a lot more things are on the table than I think were before, in a good way, right?
And when you're thinking about as the future of work changes, whether you are in between jobs or maybe switching jobs or maybe asking for that promotion or something like that, and you decide, okay, I do want to work in a sabbatical, either between jobs or with my current boss or at a new company when I eventually start. I know it's probably dependent on each person and what they want to do and what they want to accomplish, but in a general kind of sweeping average sense, in your studies and in the research that you've been doing, is there an average sabbatical length? Is it a month? Is it 3 months? Is there any sort of industry average or not really?
Yeah, it's totally the Wild West right now. But I can say that 6 months feels like universally sufficient for folks. 2 months for most people is like, I was really just starting to live into myself at 6 or 8 weeks. And so I think more than 2 months, as close to 6 as you can get. Some people take a year. But really, I think that if you take a month off, and Kelly kind of mentions, is this just a long vacation? If you take a month off, I think the overwhelming feeling you will have is, that was incredible. And man, that really flew by. Like, no one noticed that I was gone. I didn't get to do 90% of the things I wanted to do. And I kind of think that sort of extended leave that's more than a vacation is a gateway drug to realizing life is more than work. Don't worry about what other people think of you. Prioritize this sort of time that will be like truly yours before life like snatches you from things and makes you take time off. Like, that's not a great situation to be in.
I would find, so 2 podcasts ago, we met with Kwame, who is very into negotiation, which I think is so key. And it was such a great session. But it seemed like this could be a great thing to negotiate going into a job. Or have you seen people that have leveraged, even whether it's, I don't want to say a pay cut or something, but like, okay, I have job offer A here that's $10, and I have job offer B here that's $8, but offer B says that every 3 years I can take 3 months off. Like, have you seen people kind of negotiating, even with their salaries, negotiating in sabbaticals at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely on the table. I would suggest people negotiate a pre-batical, so I think that the worst possible scenario for a company is you hire someone, everyone in an interview is doing awesome, like everything's great, right? You hire someone and they're burnt out from the last job, and you bring them on and they're just like, left the last job on Friday, start on Monday, and then they're starting a new job burnt out. Like, that's how they're starting, right? So I would encourage everybody, especially business owners, to understand that people are coming in not in a great state, especially right now, and negotiate that. Obviously, every company needs someone to start yesterday. I get it. Like, I've run businesses, but like the like alternative is not good. But yeah, I mean, I think like asking for something like that, and talking about it in a way that it fits into how the company works. Consulting firms, firms that are product kind of development cycle led, it's relatively straightforward. Like, I want to leave after we launch this thing. There's a bit of a lull, like sub out, some in. So I think that the economy is kind of moving towards that. But just one thing I wanted to mention. So there's like how you present yourself when you first go into a working setting is really important. In Clay Christensen's book, How Will You Measure Your Life, which I would recommend reading, he talks about how he was a devout Mormon, and like when he went to work in consulting, they were like, "Hey, great, see you guys tomorrow. It's Friday. He's like, see you tomorrow on Saturday so we can get this finished." And he says, "I don't work on Saturdays. That's family day." And they're like, "What are you talking about? You're an early 20s, like consultant associate. Like, that's not something you can do." He's like, "Listen, I made the commitment to my family. It's what I do." And they're like, "Okay, well, we'll see you then on Sunday, and you send it to me Sunday night." And he's like, "Sorry, Sundays for faith. I don't work on Sundays." And, eventually they were like, "Ugh, all right, like you better," he's like, "I will work as hard as I need to during the week. I'll get the work done." And so like what happens is you have to be a high performer in order to ask things from your employers, right? And also it's that the thing that Clay was exhibiting is called the red sneaker effect. If you're going to show with confidence that you believe in yourself, you believe in your work, you don't need to conform to the ways that the company typically operates, like that actually sends a message to the hiring manager, to the supervisors that like, "Hey, listen, like my performance is going to be here. You can judge me on that." And part of what I do is I take 3 months off every 5 years.
And wait, why is it called the red sneaker?
Because imagine going into like a fundraising meeting and everyone's wearing suits and you're wearing jeans and like red sneakers and a hoodie. And so you're basically saying like, I am not conforming, like this is me. And like, you can measure me based on the results, not whether or not I wear a suit like everybody else.
Right. Oh, I like that. And that was in the book, or that's a different reference?
Yeah, it's a study that is published in Harvard Business Review, but it's the same principle as Clay was talking about.
Okay. I love that you're referencing Harvard Business Review. If someone watching this is like, this is super interesting, I want to keep reading about this, I want to keep, I don't know, maybe exploring some podcasts or newsletters or just more information other than just this one session about this topic, are there some good go-tos? Is Harvard Business Review a good place for people to go, or where can people go to get more information on this subject?
My answer is going to be very self-serving, and I wish it wasn't. I mean, the reason that I'm doing this is because there isn't that information, right? Like,
Got it.
sabbatical stories historically have lived on people's personal blogs and at backyard barbecues. If you follow the term sabbatical on Twitter, if you follow it on LinkedIn, you follow the Sabbatical Project, like we have stories, case studies, stuff on our website. I'm obviously writing this book to help kind of like show these experiences. But you'll see it's bubbling up. There's an author, Alex Pang, who wrote a book called Shorter. No, I guess his book Shorter is about the 4-day work week, which is prescient and I think started that movement. He wrote a book called Rest, which has a chapter on sabbatical. So it's basically, sleep, like micro to macro forms of resting and the impact that it has on your life. You can check him out. But, really, I want people to support the Sabbatical Project because that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to show these stories and, move our world of work forward towards being able to take time off as the norm.
Totally. And I feel like here's some real talk. Here's why I think that you are so interesting, DJ, in this space, because I feel like a lot of times I'm not going to name names, but a lot of times I feel like I see whether it's founders or people, and let's just say that they're talking the talk and they're not walking the walk. So what I think is so, at least for me, relatable about you is you had a really successful business career. I think sometimes when I hear people that are talking about like meditate for 3 hours a day, but like I've never really had like a high stress job. I'm like, go to the middle of Manhattan, go into Goldman Sachs and tell them to meditate for 3 hours a day. You know what I mean? Like it ain't gonna happen. And so I feel like you actually, to quote Hannah Montana, you've had the best of both worlds. Like you have lived the starting a company, a business, success like that. And also, like two things being true at once, seeing the value in sabbaticals and maybe not hustling so hard. I would imagine, I am assuming, but please correct me if I'm wrong, that most of the people that you meet in this space are not like you. They're not people that have started a company. They're not people who have worked in fintech. They're not people, it's a little more, can I say woo woo? It's my show. I can say whatever I want, but just like a little more woo woo, like they're not relatable to like people in business. I don't know. Maybe that's a bad assumption.
So, okay. So what I'll say is when I was traveling for 4 months, like, and like rock climbing in Hampi, India, I would meet people that they worked as like bartenders for 9 months so that they could travel for 3 months every year. And they're in like their late 20s and mid 30s.
Yes,
And I
exactly.
was like,
It's Illuminati. We love them. They're great. But
and
like,
I was like, man, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine that mindset. And I wish that I could, because they're clearly a lot happier than I am. But like the world that I occupy right now is actually not what you said. Like it's actually people who like work really hard and integrate breaks into their life. And it's not a big deal. It's not like you don't have to burn out. You don't have to like throw a stick of dynamite on your life. Like you say, one of my collaborators worked at McKinsey, and instead of going to business school, he was like, I want to go to the conservatory because I'm a pianist. And so they're like, okay. He came back and he said, listen, I would love to go back to McKinsey, but I'm going to take 2 months off every summer and I'm going to perform piano in Berlin. That's my condition. And they said, all right, well, we're going to pay you, 2 out of 12 months less. And he goes, awesome. And he did it for a decade and it was great. And he's a super high
a
performer.
decade.
Yeah. I know a guy that works, from Bain to Airbnb to now like at a startup, and he just takes a few months off every 4 or 5 years. And he's like the highest performing person you would ever know. And he just integrates this. So I think we need to what I'm trying to do is like normalize the fact that you don't have to wear, elephant pants and backpack across Southeast Asia to take time off. This should be a thing that we do. I was talking to this guy yesterday, Brian Smith from this company, My Leon, which is they're measuring like the physiological aspects of burnout and actually giving the data to managers in aggregate to say like, how are the teams doing? And are you giving people recovery and recuperation time? And he brought up a metaphor that I hadn't thought of, which is it's the off season, right? I mean, you don't watch sports the whole year. I know Shelby's husband's in the military. Like they have R&R. Like you have months of R&R between deployments. You go to the Army War College for a year if you're an officer every 7 years. Like there are really high performing organizations that incorporate these kind of breaks just in business as usual. And we just don't talk about them that much. It doesn't mean that they're not there.
They're there, but they're hiding. But that's why you're bringing them out. That's why they're coming into the forefront.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're a manager, how can you, let's say I'm a small business owner, or not even a small business owner. Let's say I work at Bank of America and, I have 30 people under me. Have you seen, or do you encourage people from like a top down strategy? Hey, have you thought about a sabbatical? Are you thinking kind of flipping it on its head where you're like, okay, most managers don't want their teams to take sabbaticals. Have you ever seen any research when it's flipped? Because I forget which company it was. I'm forgetting, but it was like they made their company take, I think it was like 3 weeks vacation. Like they would act, maybe it's Zappos. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But it was they make you take vacation. Like if you try to keep working, they'll be like, nope, you have to take off 1 week
Yeah.
every whatever it is, 4 months. And they like, I guess, fire you for a week or something. They basically tell you not to come in. Like, have you seen any of that movement anywhere?
First of all, Citibank launched a 6-week paid sabbatical policy during the pandemic. So like banks do this. They are starting to do it. And what I would say as a hiring manager is like, what are your goals? Is your goal to keep like the millennials and Gen Y folks like to stay for 4 years instead of 2? Is it to keep people for staying, 7 instead of 5? And kind of design the policy to address that specific goal. So there's a big asset management firm on the West Coast that called Brighton Jones that has a sabbatical policy, and it's every 10 years, and it's 6 months paid, but you can take up to 12. So you basically get paid half for a year. And, most people are like 10 years, like we're going to have 10 jobs in our lifetime. There's no way I'm staying at a company 10 years, but it's an asset management company. And they want their like high performers to stay for decades. And so that's how they design the policy. I keep going back to, if you're a business, I understand short-termism and like, how is my team going to survive if like so-and-so is gone for 3 months? But like so-and-so is probably burnt out. I mean, look at the studies out there about engagement at work. 40% of people are looking for another job right now. Or I think the McKinsey study said 40% of people are leaving their job within the next 6 months. Like you're fighting the wrong battle. You should be fighting to retain your best employees, and should be fighting to create like a good life and livelihood for your colleagues and yourself, right? Like what are we doing? What are we doing here?
Well, and I love Jeff's point, speaking of that McKinsey study, do you think, in your opinion, would sabbaticals kind of stave off or take more pressure off of this whole great resignation that we keep reading about in the Wall Street Journal and in the Times?
Maybe. I'll share a couple of stories. One is I interviewed this woman who worked for the US Treasury for 12 years. And they have a leave without pay policy, so effectively sabbatical. So she took that, and, she was in that kind of state of being burnt out and like, I care about the mission of my work, but, I've been doing it for too long. And she took 6 months off and backpacked through Patagonia, and then actually took care of her family during an emergency that cropped up, and was thankful to have had that extra time. And she came back and she said, actually, I can't imagine doing any other job. I love the work. I just need to let off steam every once in a while. And so I think, yes, there's a portion of people that if they had that as a regular occurrence in their job, that would stave off them leaving. But I think the reason we're seeing the Great Resignation, I think, and the reason why people say that like introducing sabbatical policies don't work is because if everyone's already burnt out, then like giving them this golden parachute to like take time off and like look around the world and find something else, of course they're going to leave, right? You can't there's a backlog of people who've been like pushed to the max, and you can't expect those people not to leave, and you can't over index on that like resignation for what's a solution to actually creating a sustainable work life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like I think about it in both ways. I think about it from the employee's point of view, because I was an employee in corporate. And then I also think about it as a founder, running a business. So, I can see it from both sides of the coin. And it's tough. It's a tough balance.
I'm not going to let you off the hook like dodging the sabbatical thing. Like
Okay.
if you can't get your business to a place where you can take off without stressing about it in 5 years, like I don't think you've like set up a great business.
100%. I think that I have two problems to solve. I have many problems to solve. We'll talk about that with my therapist, and that's not you, DJ, nor do you want to hear about all my problems. But I think my two main things are, one, you're 100% right, planning for a sabbatical, but also at some point I want to have a baby. I hope my family's not watching this. They're going to be like, baby, no, not yet. Like at some point. So planning for that. And two, here's my thing, and maybe you can give me advice. By the way, I forgot to say it earlier, but if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat. If not, I will monetize all this time with DJ and ask him all the questions I want to ask. But that feels selfish. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat because DJ and I will talk about it with you. Okay, here's my thing. I go to take vacation, right? Like I'll give you an example. Typically in my marketing agency between Thanksgiving and New Year's, it's very slow. Like the entertainment industry shuts down. You got Thanksgiving, you got Hanukkah, you got Christmas, people are in, people are out, the kids are off school. It's a mess. So it's very, very light. And a lot of times, honestly, in all of December, a lot of the entertainment agencies will kind of like clear out. I mean, they're working, but they're like not really working. They kind of push everything to January. And so here's what I have done typically the last couple of years. There's all these things that I find interesting, right? Online courses, whatever. And then like some sort of crazy person, I get to vacation and I'm like, oh, now I have all this time for learning that I didn't have time to do during the year. And then I won't say it's work because to me it's fun. It's like fun to learn, but I go into like, let's say a month-long slower season and I'll be like, here are the 3 books I want to read, the 2 online courses I've signed up for, and like the 1 Maven program that I'm going to research. And then suddenly I'm like, I've made myself very busy on my supposed vacation time. And it's a bad habit. And I don't know if it's an addiction or what, but there's a problem to solve.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So that problem, I think, is derived from the scarcity mindset of time off that we're living in, right? Like we don't have a lot of vacation. We try to like maximize all the vacation, and then the vacation becomes a job. And so like you have to get beyond that, right? Like what you would see if you went on sabbatical. And a couple of my friends from business school have just reached out to me, so I'm coaching them informally. And they're like, all right, I sold my business. So I'm reading a book about what to do next. And I'm listening to podcasts about founders, and I'm learning Portuguese. And you're like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, what do you love to do? What did you love to do as a kid? Like, what would you do if no one was looking? And, we eventually get on and like, get out of your head. You're swapping out your mental, like work stuff for other things, which are masquerading as like enjoyment, but are really more accomplishment things. So totally makes sense. And he was like, now he's taking cooking classes, which you're still accomplishing something, but you're like providing for your family. You're like doing something creative. You're working with your hands, not your head. So anyway, I always encourage people to get out of their mind and into their body when they take a break, especially that like first phase where you need to like detox. Like you're just trading mind for mind kind of, right?
Well, I will say during the pandemic, cooking was a good gateway drug because when work was stopped and everyone's like, pandemic, it didn't stop, but it significantly slowed. I was like, well, I don't know what I did today, but here are 3 banana bread loaves. And that felt good. I'm so sick of banana bread. I never want to see banana bread again in my life. I made so much banana bread, but it did feel, accomplishment. That's a whole nother thing, but accomplishment is a little bit of an addiction.
Yeah.
And like a sickness where like after an hour, you're like, but I have banana bread now, as opposed to just doing something, cause you like doing it.
Yeah. Rock climbing for me is that, because you're essentially like you're going up a wall and you're coming back down and like nothing has happened. Like the wall didn't move. You didn't really get anywhere. You're just down at the same place where you started. It's nothing.
Yeah, but you kind of have the accomplishment. Have you watched Free Solo? Like Alex Sonoy will tell you that, that was an accomplishment, which it was.
Okay. But I want to touch on a couple of things that you said earlier, because we're not letting you off the hook.
Let's get into it.
Baby moon. Or so like before you start to have that kid, or I don't know if you're married, but like having like an extended honeymoon, like part of the thing I'm arguing in the book is I think there's actually like 7 or so moments in people's lives that they should take time off to kind of appreciate the gravity of the moment and like live into it, but they don't. And so I think before someone has their kid, before someone gets married, gap year, like empty nesters when their kids have just left, like when your kids are that right age where they can like really soak in, you know, an international trip, like, you know, teaching them on the road.
Because when they're blobs, it's like, what's the point? Totally. I love kids, but let's be honest. The first 6 months, they're blobs. They don't go anywhere. They just poop and eat and sleep and cry. They're blobs.
Yeah. So you know, like honor that moment and take a moment before you bring kids into your life potentially and say like, this is just for me and my husband, and we're going to travel. We're going to do a few of the things we wanted to do, or we're going to run the business from another country for a little bit. Like you will remember that month more looking back a decade from now than any other month this year.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Okay. So we got baby moon, wedding, kids out of the house. I got some time before that. But you're right. There are some life events that you really want to soak in a little bit more.
On the entertainment piece, I mean, listen to Stefan Sagmeister's TED Talk, because here's a person who's at like the peak of, you know, runs a creative agency, has done all this amazing stuff. And he talks about the benefit to his work of taking that time off. I haven't worked in entertainment, so I can't say, but I imagine if you have cool stories, experiences, like that stuff will actually resonate with folks, and it'll make you more creative, and I think better when you come back. So we can revisit this. I'll drop it, but I want to connect with you in like a year and see what your planning process is.
Okay, well, this is perfect because in the next section are like our rapid fire questions, which we're just going to copy all your homework. But the last one is homework. And then I would challenge you to give everybody homework. And then you can also give like me specific homework. And then we can check in on it. Make sure I'm doing my homework.
Yeah.
Okay, but are you ready for us to like copy all your homework?
Let's do it.
Okay. What have you started doing lately or using lately that you are just sort of obsessed with? You're telling all your friends about it. You're like, you gotta download this app or watch this show, or I don't know, just something that you're talking a lot about lately.
Do you want like the answer that I want people to hear or the true answer?
Both, obviously.
Okay. You can edit out the true answer in post editing. Does that happen in live shows? So my buddy got me into this guy, Sean Vigue Fitness, Vigue. And my partner and I are doing the 30-day Pilates challenge. And it is killer. He's super corny. He's great. You got to do it. You can edit that out. But we also got obsessed during the pandemic with this chef, Kenji. And he got us into wok cooking. Wok.
Oh yeah, the big pan.
Yeah, and so he's coming out with a wok cookbook, which we're like greatly anticipating. But I've just been like walking everything.
Good walking. What's your favorite thing to walk?
I mean, I've been on a fried rice kick recently, I think, but like really, once you realize that you can French fry potatoes in a way that's better than any French fries you've ever had. In a wok, it's devastating, because then you know, like you have it in the back of your mind, like I could now make the best French fries I've had in months.
Forever.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, what is the best gift that you have given yourself or done for yourself in the last year? So you can't use your sabbatical that you did a couple of years ago, because it has to be within the last 12-month period. So between now and like August of 2020.
So you're kind of looking at it in the background, which is we ended up at an A-frame in Lake Tahoe.
By the way, do you ever do that to a screen when somebody says, look, and you zoom as if like me putting my face is going to like get me in your, I don't know why I do that, but I'm always like, what? Okay. What is that?
We're spending 2 months at an A-frame in Lake Tahoe. I wish I could turn you around and show you the view, but basically just to get out of the city, focus on the Maven course, which I'm going to launch in November. And yeah, I think like I love the city. I love our people there, but something about being out in the woods.
You're going full Henry Thoreau in the woods, and I appreciate that. I like that. Okay, so when you're done in the woods, when you re-enter kind of society and kind of back to your normal life, what is something that you're really excited to learn? It could be like I really want to learn another language, or I really want to learn how to, I don't know, code or something. Is there something that's kind of on your bucket list of you really want to learn?
Speaking of bucket lists, because I think about this a lot with sabbaticals, did you know the term bucket list did not exist before the movie The Bucket List?
I
It's
did
interesting.
not, but that is now a fun fact that I will be stealing at future dinner parties. I will
Super.
credit you, of course. But yes.
um, I'm in this mode of wanting to like write and grow the sabbatical project, and so my answers I think are disappointingly in that vein. But I just had this conversation I mentioned earlier with this guy Brian Smith from My Leon about the like physiological aspects of burnout, and I like my eyebrow's been raised for the past year about burnout because I feel like you're hearing a lot of people be like, burnout, here's 3 simple tips. And it's like, meditate for 5 minutes and then your burnout disappears. And I
Yeah,
just haven't
it's a
seen,
band-aid on a bullet hole. It's a
yeah, I
band-aid
haven't
on a bullet
seen
hole.
any data, any studies, any companies, any individuals that have actually said like my burnout has been solved. I think it's about kind of like managing it and keeping you within a realm where you can. So like I'm interested in learning more about the burnout literature because our study, everyone who's taken a sabbatical has taken vacations. Everyone who's taken a sabbatical has done 5 minutes of meditation. But like this seems to really put people on a different path where they're doing something that's more kind of consistent with who their core true self is. So I want to like see what else is out there and learn more about burnout.
I love that. And it's a good thing to learn, like get excited about really learning what's possible and what you're able to do. Okay, so I'm curious when I have this theory that the old saying was you are the accumulation of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And I think with these things now,
Mm.
we're the accumulation of the 5 brands that we follow or humans that we follow. They don't even have to be friends. They could be total strangers. So who or what are some accounts on social media, and which social media, but do you feel like are just like a spark of bright light? Like every time you see their post, every time it's kind of coming in your feed, you're just like, yes, like that offered me a bit of sunshine on this rainy day.
I mean, obviously you're rebranding Wednesdays, so now I'm gonna have to like hump day. Honestly, you're not gonna love this answer, but I feel like I try to not be in like the stream all week.
Yeah.
I really look forward to my friend Arthi Shahani's podcast, The Art of Power. I really look forward to Ezra Klein's podcasts all the time. And then on the silly side, I really love this show How To with John Wilson. I'd suggest people look at the scaffolding episode. But
I will say sometimes it's the silly things that make the biggest difference. I'm debating whether I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. I'm just going to say it. We're all friends here. But my fiance, who's super hardworking and really, really focused all the time, he sometimes will watch those dodo videos. I don't know if you've ever seen the dodo, but they're like animals doing like cute and funny things. And I will walk into the room and he is cracking up. And I'm like, what are you looking at? And it's like hippos squirting water at each other. And I'm like, what are you watching? So I will say that there is, I would say, anecdotal proof. You do need some fun or some lightheartedness just to make
yeah,
you laugh some days.
yeah, my Instagram is basically beautiful photography and meme accounts.
And memes. Memes are great. I follow several meme accounts and they still make me laugh, and I'm not going to apologize for it. So it's fine. I call it like brain candy. Is it making me
Mhm.
better? No. But is it delicious candy? Yes. Okay. This is the moment you've been waiting for, which is assigning me. Well, you can assign me homework and then you can assign all of us homework. So, what is one thing that me/we should all due this week, or maybe longer. Maybe it's like a month-long assignment, but that we should begin putting on our to-do list for this week as homework from you.
Yeah. Have you heard of morning pages?
Yeah.
So like, I'm assuming most folks have tried to do morning pages and have not succeeded, but I'm going to give you a morning page-esque assignment, which is just take like for the next week, set a 5-minute reminder in your calendar and just write like things you would like to do before you die, just every day for 5 days during a work week. And then I want you to put calendar reminders once quarterly for the next 2 years, and just look at that list. Put it on Google Docs.
Just look at it.
Just look at it and just figure out like how are you going to do these, and what would your life be like if you did them? And I think, speaking of bucket list, another movie is Inception, which is like you're incepting this idea that this thing is possible into your brain and into your life. And I think it'll grow from there. And then do all the tactical things that we talked about over the course of the podcast, about talking to friends, talking to colleagues and managers, but like really making that personal list of, this is a thing that I want to do in my life that my life currently doesn't have space for.
I love that. I love a good inception in your own brain. I feel like that's always so key. Okay, people are like, I love what DJ is throwing out. I'm so excited to hear more about his Maven course and his book and this research and things that he has going on. Where should people be following you? Where do you kind of put out the most new information about you and everything that you're working on?
I think go to my LinkedIn, my name, DJ DiDonna. We've got the Sabbatical project on LinkedIn. And if you're actually contemplating or on sabbatical, we have a Facebook group to get kind of support.
That's so fun. Did he just freeze for me, or did he freeze for you too? For what it's worth, that's a good freeze face. Like if I was going to pick a freeze face, that's what I would go with, because it looks very zen, which is what I feel DJ is. It's like, I'm meditating. Okay, well, you heard the man. Go find him on LinkedIn. Sounds like he spends a lot of time on his personal LinkedIn as well as the Sabbatical project. Holy moly, I feel like I learned so much about sabbaticals and everything that has to do with them or content around them. Thank you so much for joining me this Wednesday. It was so much fun to talk with you a little bit more. As always, don't worry about taking the notes. I forgot to say it halfway through. Can you remind me next time? Go to sendmenotes.com if you want notes from this talk. However, if you signed up for notes previously, don't worry. I got you. You're already on the notes list. Don't worry about it. The notes are coming on Tuesday. Don't freak out. Don't email me on Friday being like, where are the notes? Tuesday. They're not coming tomorrow. We're not coming Friday. And your girl's not working on the weekend. So they'll be in your inbox on Tuesday morning. I promise, not to worry. But thank you for joining. I am so excited that you spent your Wednesday with me. And I hope to see you next Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, same time, same place.